Session 3. Manage users, security, and personalization in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. In today's learning agenda, we will understand security architecture of Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. Learn how to manage user and security. Understand what is a segregation of duties and how to set up and apply segregation of duties. Run and understand security reports. Describe and apply user options. Learn about difference between customization and personalizations. Learn how to create, export, and import personalizations. Finally, we will learn how to create and maintain record templates. After we understand the security architecture of finance and operations, we can more easily customize security to fit the requirements of our business. In this lesson, we will learn about security architecture, role-based security, duties, privileges, permissions, authentication, authorization, auditing. The system architecture of Microsoft Dynamics 365 for finance and operations use the stack of features within Microsoft Azure. The follow is allow finance and operations to operate and communicate with a variety of web-enabled devices. Now, let's look at a security architecture overview. The security model is a hierarchical, and each element in the hierarchy requests and represents a different level of detail. Consider following facts regarding to security. In Dynamics 365, finance and operations uses role-based security. Access is granted only to security roles, not to individual users. Users are assigned to a role. A user who is assigned to a security role has access to the set of privileges that is associated with that role. A user who isn't assigned to any role has no privileges. The diagram here provides a high-level overview of security architecture. System administrator role user can configure security setting on role, duty, privilege, and permission. Each role contains multiple duties. Each duty contains multiple privileges, and each privilege contains multiple permissions. In each permission, developer can further configure security on menu items, tables, and fields level security, form security, services, and report security. Now, let's look at role-based security. The security roles are defined by functions of particular individuals with an organization or company. Every security role is a group of two higher-level forms of security structure that are duties and privileges. Role-based security is aligned with the structure of the business. Users are assigned to security role based on their responsibilities in the organizations or company and their participation in business process. The administrator grants access to duties that user in a role perform, not to the program element that a user must use. In role-based security, access is not granted to an individual user as we mentioned earlier, only to security role. Users are assigned to the roles, and a user who is assigned a security role has access to the set of privileges that associate with that role. A user who is not assigned to any role has no privileges at all. All users must be assigned to at least one security role to have access to finance and operations client. The security role that are assigned to a user determine the duties that user can perform and the parts of the user interface that the user can view in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Because roles can be set up for automatic role assignment, the administrator does not have to be involved every time that a user responsibilities change. After security roles and the roles have been set up, business manager can control day-to-day user access based on business data. By default, sample security roles are provided by Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations after install. All functionality in Finance and Operations associated with at least one of the sample security roles. The administrator can assign user to sample security roles or modify sample security role to fit the needs of the business or create brand new security roles if you want. By default, the sample roles are not arranged in a hierarchy. Now, duties. Duties being related to a task a user performs, such as approve closing transactions, while privilege related to individual object with MS acceptor, such as reports or different form. Duties correspond to part of a business process. The administrator assigns duties to security role. A duty can be assigned to more than one role in Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations. Duties contains privileges. For example, a maintain bank transaction duty contains the generate deposit slip and cancel payment privileges. Both duties and privileges can be assigned to security roles. However, Microsoft recommends that we use duties to grant access to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Privileges. A privileges within the approved closing transaction duty will be approved ledger elimination journal, which corresponding to a specific form. Next step in the security architecture will be the permission level, which is what each privilege contains. Privilege can be assigned directly to a role. However, for easy maintenance, Microsoft recommends that we assign only duties to role. A privilege specifies the level of access that is required to perform a job, solve a problem, or complete an assignment. It also contains permissions to individual application objects, such as user interface, elements, and a table. For example, cancel payment privilege contains permission to the manual items, fields, and tables that are required to cancel payments. By default, privileges are provided for all features in Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations. The administrator can modify the permissions that are associated with privilege or create a new privilege. Permissions. As we mentioned, multiple permissions will report to privileges. Permissions are used to give access to a specific job object in Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations. Permissions represent access to individual secureable objects such as menu item, tables. Privileges are composed of permissions and represent access to tasks such as posting journal and processing credit and collections. Duties are composed of privilege and represent parts of business process such as maintain cash and bank transaction. Both duties and privilege can be assigned to role to grant access to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. There are 6 different levels within permissions. No access, read, update, create, correct, and delete. Each function in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, such as form or a service, is accessed through an entry point. Menu item web content item, and service operations are referred to collectively as entry points. Authentications. Only authenticated users who have user rights in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations can establish a connection. Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations uses Microsoft Azure Active Directory (AAD) as a primary identity provider. To access the system, user must provisioned into Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations instance and should have a valid AAD, which is Azure Active Directory, account in an authorized tenant. Authorizations. Authorization is a control of access to the Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations program. Security permissions are used to control access to individual elements of the program, such as menu items, action, and a command button, reports, service, operations, web URL menu items, web controls, and fields in the Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations client. In Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations, individual security permissions are combined into privileges, and the privileges are combined into duties. The administrator grants security role access to a program by assigning duties and privileges to those roles. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations uses context-based security to determine access to secureable objects. When a privilege is associated with the entry point, such as menu item or a service operation, a level of access such as read or delete is specified. The Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations authorization subsystems detects the access at the runtime when that entry point is accessed and applies the specified level of access to the secureable object that the entry point leads to. This functionality helps to ensure that we do not assign more permissions for a user than we need to. Auditing. Dynamics 365 for Finance Operations has introduced an audit trail button on the security role form. The form will provide us with a timestamp, an event type, a user ID, an object type, and the name of the object. A sign out is logged even if the user session expires or ends. A system administrator or security administrator can access audit logs by going to user log page, which is System Administration, Inquiries, User Log. An additional consideration in security will be external roles. External roles form allows administrator to assign security role to an external role such as a customer, vendor, a prospect, vendor, and worker. This is normally used on vendor collaborations or customer self-service sales order maintenance. Domain user security account allow us to identify idle accounts and find out if the accounts are enabled or disabled. Now, let's talk about how to manage users and the user security. Users are internal employees of our organization or company, or external customers and vendors who require access to the system to perform their job, such as review new created purchase order, confirm purchase order lead time and price. It is not recommended that we add users from outside our company to our organization, partner and other users who aren't part of our organization should be invited only to projects. To add a user, just click Import User button from the system and the administration workspace. When we remove an exclusive by resetting the user status, the user role is again assigned automatically. However, the user is not immediately assigned to the role or excluded from the role when we reset the status. Instead, the user is either assigned to the role or removed from the role the next time that roles for automatic role assignment are run, which means user have to log off the system and log in back. By assigning a user to a batch manager security role, the user has permission to copy batch jobs, change who will execute jobs, and specify the time range during which job can be executed. The batch maintainer security privilege is a part of a batch manager security role and allows user to create an ad hoc batch job and grant privilege to other users. Okay, let's have a quick demo about how to create a new user and assign a user security role. To create a new user, we go to System Administration, Users, User. And we can create a new user by clicking New button. Give the user ID, for example, WEIC, and give the username. The login email. Then the default login company. I'll select USMF. Then, after creating the new user ID, we can assign the security role. You can see the system automatically assigns a system user to this new user account. And based on the requirement, I can assign, for example, I will assign account manager role and accounting supervisor role. Click OK. Now, I can save it. The new user is created. This is how to create a new user and assign a security role for your environment. The next one, I'd like to show you how to import a user and assign security role. Instead of manually create the new user, I also can import the user from Azure Active Directory. So I can click Import Users. The system will looking and retrieve from the Azure Active Directory for all the users have a tenant in your Active Directory. So I can easily add, for example, Dynamic User 01 and click Import User. So you can see import complete successfully. So when I close that, I can find my Dynamic User 01 in my list. So in order to navigate up and down, I also can search the user by the title filter. The header filter is user ID, so I can say begin with DYN, apply, and I can see my Dynamic User 01 is imported from Azure Active Directory. I click the link. Now I'll be able to assign a user role from the assign roles to user window. In this one, I may choose account receivable clerk. So now this user will have a account receiver clerk user role. If you do not want this user to be active for logging in your system, you can easily switch the user status to ended. So then, instead of we delete the user will not able to access Dynamics 365 finance and operations. For my demo, I click Enable and save, close. So if I refresh that, and remove the filter by click clear, it will list all the users in my environment. This is how to import user and assign security role. Next one, I'd like to show you how to import user in book as a batch job. This is a primarily used when we prepare go live or UAT, user acceptance tests. We'd like to import all the users from our company. So instead of manually import or manually create one by one, from user window, I can click batch import. From batch import, I can expand run in the background. If I want to batch process running in the background, I can switch on batch process and give the task description import users and select the batch group of the batch engine. So I will say that update batch group. And I can switch on private just for myself using, or it's a critical job. Then if you want, you can select monitoring category based on your requirement. Now I can click OK. The import user job is added to the batch queue. So we'll be able to see when the batch job finished, the new user will be added to the user window. So give a couple minutes. Let's click refresh. And I'd like to still put a filter on DYN, user beginning. So at this moment, I still have a Dynamic user 01 in the system. But after batch finished, it will have more user imported. Now, after this batch job finished, the new users from all my Azure Active Directory account will be added to the system. So now, if I filter by user IDs begin with DYN, you can see all my Dynamic user account is added from the batch. This is a wrap up how to use a batch to import users. And after that, you can assign the security role. Next, I'd like to show you how to assign user security role dynamically. To do that, we go to System Administration, Security, Assign User to a Role. From here, for example, if I want to assign a role accounting manager to different users, I just need to select the accounting manager role. And from here, you can see this is a user who has already been assigned to this role listed here. Now, if I want to dynamically assign the users to the role, I can add the role here, select the query name from the list. For example, I choose vendor portal users, and you also be able to edit the query based on your requirement. So here's the query. You can modify this query based on your business requirement and click OK. Then you can run automatic role assignment. Now you can see the system will automatically assign this new user to accounting manager based on the role query from the list here. If you want to exclude some user from that security role, we just need to manually assign and exclude user button, and then find the user by typing so I select this user and exclude from role. Now close the page. Its role, this user will be excluded from the accounting manager role. This is how we assign user to security role dynamically. Now let's have a look. Microsoft Dynamics 365 security configuration. To access security configuration, go to Navigation, System Administration, and Security Configuration. Use this form to configure and modify existing security role, add or remove certain security privilege. For example, in the role here, you can see all existing security role in your Dynamics 365. Also, you'll be able to see the duties and privileges. To modify a role, we just need to highlight the role. For example, accounting manager. Then I can looking at the duties belong to the role accounting managers. If I need more duties for this accounting manager role, I can easily add a new duties to this role. For example, I add the duty for approve budget plan. Click OK. Now, publish the change. Then, the new duties has been added to the accounting manager role. Okay, let's talk about segregation of duties. Security or policies may require that specific tasks be performed by different users. We can set up roles to separate tasks that must be performed by different users. This concept is named segregation of duties. This helps reduce risk of fraud and helps you to detect errors or irregularities. For example, we might not want the same person both to acknowledge the receipt of goods and to process payment to the vendor. Segregation of duties help us reduce the risk of fraud, and it also helps us detect errors or irregularities. We can also use segregation of duties to enforce internal control policies. Default duties are provided. The administrator can modify privileges and that are associated with the duty or create new duties. When the definition of security role or the role assignments of a user violates the roles, the conflict is logged. All conflicts must be resolved by the administrator. To identify any resolved conflicts and verify whether user role assignments comply with the new roles for the segregation of duties, we need to run the verify compliance of user role assignment process from system administration, security, segregation of duty, verify compliance of user role assignment. After we click OK to run the process, a notification displays the result of the violations and the validation result. If there's a conflict, we can open the user's page and change the user role assignment. Conflicts are also logged on a segregation of duties conflicts page. To run that, the verification process as a batch job, we just need to select a batch processing and then set the other batch parameters. After the batch job runs, we can review the conflicts in the segregation of duty conflicts page, then take required action to correct them. Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations provides a set of rich security reports to help us understand the set of security roles running in our environment and the set of users assigned to each role. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations Security Report can be found under System Administration, Inquiries, Security. Now let's get to know some of those security reports, which will be very helpful to us. User Role Assignment Report. The User Role Assignment Report generates a view of the current user role assignments in our system. By default, the report includes all users with roles assigned. We can optionally limit the report to a specific set of users by entering a list of users when generating the report. On the user role assignment parameter pane, go to Records to include and filter. From here, we can add or remove filters to the list of users the report will be generated for. For each user in the report, a list of roles is provided, along with any restriction at the legal entity or organization level. The role to user assignment report. This report provides an aggregation of role assignments. Expanding the role in the report shows the list of users assigned to the role, and expanding the user name shows any restriction the role has applied. The same method for filter the set of users can be applied to this report as described previously. The other one is called the Security Role Effective Access Report, which provides a view of the effective permissions for each security role. This report provides a flattened list of permissions grouped by type of across all sub-roles, duties, and privileges contained in the role. The report may take some time to run. If it is first time the report has run, or there could be changes to the role definitions, the rebuild collection option should be set to yes. We can optionally limit the role to be include the report by adding filter under record to include session. The last one we were talking is about the security duty assignment report, which provide a view of all duties contained with a role. This report can be configured to run on any collection of the role to ensure that segregation of duty is maintained between roles. By default, the report will include all roles. To limit the roles include leverage the filter provided in the record to include sections. Expanding a role in the security duty assignment report will show each duty assigned to the role along with details of duties. Now, let's have a quick demo about how to set up segregation of duties. To set up segregation of duties, we also need to go to System Administration, Security, Segregation of Duties, and set up segregation of duty roles. We can click New, and system automatically default new segregation duty role sentence here, but we can change based on our requirement. So I will delete that. I will give a name, for example, vendor, master, and purchase order. The first role I will select, first duty I will select will be maintain vendor master. And in the second duties, I'd like to select maintain purchase orders. And I will select medium. Then the security risk, I will give the risk description. For example, create a phony vendor and purchase order. And on the security migration, we will say monthly management review to prevent this happen. Okay, after I finish this segregation of duties role, I just click save and close. This is the demo of how to set up segregate duty roles. Personalization in Dynamics 365 for financial operations. There are three basic classes of personalizations. Personalization made on a setup page. Example include the color, theme, and the time zone. Personalization related to page usage called implicit personalization. For example, the system keeps tracking of width of grid columns if you adjust them. and the expanded or collapsed state of the fast tabs. Personalization a user makes to modify appearance of the page by changing the way of element appears on the X on the page, often through an interactive personalization model. This personalization called explicit personalizations. For example, a user might add, hide, or reorder elements on the page. Every personalization that a user makes is for that user only, regardless the type of the personalization or the company that the user is currently interacting with. The change that one user makes to a page does not affect other users at all in the system. In this module, we will learn how to describe and apply user options, differentiate between customization and personalization, create, export, and import personalization, and then create and maintain record template. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations offers some various color themes and element size to create a please interface. We can use user option page to control basic features and behavior of our environment that are specific to us as a user. The system administrator can control this user option from user page in the system administration module as well. Now, what's the customization? The term of customization truly means that we, as a functional consultant, have already identified a gap per our customer's requirements and identified the gap as a solution that needs to be created to address the gap. The gap normally to be identified by an internal meeting among our implementation team members and discussion with the customer. Since Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations has locked the Microsoft code for standard functionality out of a box, developers are no longer able to use the over-layering concept. This means modifying Microsoft code is no longer possible. However, developers on our team can use extensions to customize the specific standard function of Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations to address the gaps in customers' business requirement. Now, what's the personalizations? The personalization is one of the best aspects of Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations. From a user perspective, is that we can change user interface or modify screen layout, for example, adding or removing fields to meet a customer requirement without doing any computer programming. We can do this by ourselves without having to contact our IT department or system administrator for customization. Finance and Operations. As we all know, customization and extension will need developer to do it and may result in higher cost to achieve. All personalized screen layout affect how data appears on the screen for us. Now, if we have personalized our screen in a neat way and we want to other users to also have the needy new layout, we can export our personalization page by creating a personalization file. This file is in XML format. The personalizing file can be imported to another user, thereby giving that person the screen layout we created. It is important to point out that not many business users change default setting. Often it is the managers of each department of our customer's business that need a specific user interface or functionalities to be imposed for their staff. It is worth to note that customization and extension as well as personalization require work to maintain over the time. In Dynamics 365 for Finance Operations offers some various color themes and element size to create a pleasing interface for users. We can use user option page to control basic feature and behavior of our environment that are specific to use as a user. The system administrator can control these user options from the user page in System Administration module. And however, each user can maintain that by themselves to change the user option. On the navigation bar, we just need to find a gear wheel icon that accesses the setting menu. Opening the setting menu, we will find several choices. Selecting user option will open user options page. There we will find 4 option tabs, one of which is named Visual. We can personalize many options such as color theme and time zone for each user. With the Visual tab, we can select a color theme to apply to the system and determine whether we'd like to larger or smaller element size on our pages. On the Preferences tab of the User Option page, we have a variety of options that we can select. We can select default value that we are using every time that we open Dynamics 365 for Financial Operations. The company we are going to default login. This value includes the company initial page and default view edit mode. The view edit mode determines whether a page is locked for viewing or opened for editing every time that we open it. The Preferences tab also includes options for the languages, time zone, and the date, time, and the number format. This tab also includes several miscellaneous preferences that vary from release to release. In the Account tab on the User Option page, it contains a variety of options that control account functions, such as which account is in Active Directory it's linked to, and how emailing and electronic signature are controlled for user account. These settings are typically controlled by our administrator. We can also adjust our username and other account-related options on this page. Now, last one, the Workflow tab on the User Option page allows us to control how notification for workflow will be delivered. We can also use Delegation Fast tab to control exactly which workflows and the time period we want to use to delegate our workflow tasks and approvals. This will be very useful if, as a user, are going to be on vacation, then you can delegate the approval task to your colleagues. Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Finance Operations keeps tracking of the width of grid column if we adjust them and expand or collapse states of the fast tabs. This type of personalization is called implicit personalization. For example, if we adjust the column width with a grid, or expand or collapse fast tab and fax boxes, it will be considered implicit personalizations. When the same grid is opened again, Dynamics 365 Finance Operations retrieved personalization done on the column, fast tab, and fact box based on the last interaction with the grid. Grid columns, we can adjust width of columns in a grid by select a size bar to the left or right of the column's header, and then sliding it left or right until the column is desired width. Dynamics 365 for financial operations stores the width that we set for a column. It then resizes the column to that width every time that we open the page that includes that grid. Fast tabs. Some pages has expanded sections that are known as fast tab. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations store information about the fast tab that we have expanded and collapsed. Then, every time that we return to that page, the same fast tab will be either expanded or collapsed based on our last interaction with this page. In some cases, we can help improve system performance by collapsing a fast tab because Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations doesn't have to retrieve the information for that fast tab until the fast tab expanded. Fact box. Some pages have a section that is known as a fact box pane, which we described in session 1. This pane contains read-only information that is related to the current subject of the page. Each section in the fact box pane is known as a fact box. We can hide or show the whole fact box pane, and we can also expand or collapse single fact box. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations stores your preferences. Then, every time that we return to the page, the state of the fact box pane and the individual fact box will be restored based on our last interaction with the page. In some cases, we can help improve system performance by collapsing the fact box because Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations doesn't have to retrieve the information for that fact box until the fact box is expanded. Action panes. An action pane appears near the top of most pages. The action pane contains buttons for many of the actions that we can perform on the current page. These buttons are often organized on tabs. We can pin open the entire action pane, or we can have it collapsed by default. Then, the next time when we open the page, Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations will restore the pinned state of the action pane. If the action pane is pinned open, Dynamics 365 Finance for Operations will also show the tab of the action we last used. Quick filters. The quick filters appears above many grids. The quick filter let us filter the grid based on the column we select. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations store the column that we filtered on. Column header filters. When we filter grid by using a column header filters, we can change the filter operator as needed to find the data that we want. For example, we can change the operator from beginning with to is exactly. Every time that we use the column header filter and modify the filter operator, Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations stores the change. Navigation pane. Navigation pane, we can open it by selecting a Show Navigation Pane button in the left pane of any page. We can pin the navigation pane open, or we can keep collapsed by default. After we pin the navigation pane open, Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations will keep it open until we collapse it. The most basic type of explicit personalization are available by right-click an element and then select Personalized. Note that not all the elements on our page can be personalized. When we use this method to personalization of the elements, property window appears. In Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations, we can tailor the way that our information is ordered and interacted with. We can also specify that some information should be hidden or some information should be added. These capabilities are key to personal and productive experience and are examples of explicit personalizations. When we right-click a menu, for example, or context menu, we can provide a few ways to explicitly change the page to better suit our requirements or the requirements of our company. Some of the most typical and important changes that can be made to a page are available directly as options on the shortcut menu. For example, if we want to add or hide a column in a grid, just right-click the grid column header and then select Add Column or Hide this column. Control property window. Also, the most basic type of explicit personalization are available by right-click an element and then select Personalize. We can use property window to personalize an element in the following way. For example, to rename the menu, we can change the element's label. If some fields not used in the business process, we can hide it so that it doesn't show in on the page. This will speed up user data entry for sure. The data in the field isn't deleted or modified, it's just hidden. The information just doesn't appear on the page to the user. We also can add information by include the information in the fast tab summary section. Also, we can skip a field when we press tab to move among the fields on the page if it is not needed for data entry, for example. Lock data and prevent data in the field from being edited. The property window might include other personalization capabilities, depends on the element. For example, the property window for a tile might let us to promote that tile to a dashboard or workspace, and the property window for dashboard might let us to create a new workspace on that dashboard. When we want to move or hide elements or make several changes, we can use the personalization toolbar, which always be able to open when you click the menu in Option tab and personalize this form. When we click Personalize this form button, we have many options. Any personalization can be done through the personalization toolbar. If we want to make multiple changes to a page or make changes that aren't available, we can use Personalize toolbar to open personalization toolbar. Just select the personalization, this form in an Elements property window. We can also select personalize this form in the Personalize group on the Option tab of each page action pane. The Personalization toolbar can be used on any page in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. It allows users or administrators to customize the look and the feel of any pages. The following tools are available on Personalization toolbars. Select tool. This tool allows us to select and change the property of an element. Select the Select tool and then select the element to modify the property of that element. When we select an element, the element's property window appears, and we can modify any of the property of that element. We can repeat the process for other elements that can be personalized on that page. However, because of the way that some elements are used, Dynamics 365 Finance Operations won't let we change some of their properties. Therefore, when we select an element, we might see that some of its property cannot be modified. For example, we cannot hide a field that is a required field. Move tools. Use these move tools to move an element to a different location on the page. Select Move Tools and then select Element to move. When we select an element, Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations scans the page to determine where the element can be moved. It then creates a series of drop zones as we drag the element around within the current group. Each drop zone is shown as a colored bordered line next to the area where the element can be dropped. Hiding tool. Hide tool, we can use this tool to hide an element on a page which we are no longer to use or do not want to show to the user. Select the Hide tool and then select the element to hide. When we select the Hide tool, all elements that are currently hidden are made visible and are shown in the shared container. We can then unhide them. By selecting Select tool, we can see how the page will look when the selected elements are hidden. We can hide required fields and sections that contains required fields. This allows we to create a simple experience where required fields that are default by business logic are not shown. Hidden required fields are also temporarily made visible if they are empty when save is attempted. Summary tool. Use this tool when we want to element to appear in FastTab summary section. The summary tool applies only to fields that are on the FastTab section. When we select the summary tool, all fields that have been selected as a summary fields are shown in the shaded container. We can interactively add fields to the FastTab summary and remove fields from the FastTab summary by selecting the field. Skip tools. This tool removes an element from the page's keyboard tab sequence. When we select the Skip tool, all elements that are currently skipped are shown on the shaded container. We can then make them part of a tab sequence again. Edit tool. Normally we use this tool to mark the element as either editable or non-editable. When we select Edit tool, all elements that are currently not editable are shown in the shaded container. We can then make them editable again. Note that some fields are required and cannot be made non-editable. A padlock symbol appears next to those fields. Add a field button. This allows we to see a list of elements that can be inserted on the page. Select Field tool under Insert to add a field to our page. When we use Field tool, we can add only fields that are part of the page definition, but that aren't currently shown on the page. Add a Power Apps button. This embeds an app that we create by using Microsoft Power Apps into the page. By using this button, we can easily add in our Power Apps to the current page. Also, on the Personalization toolbar, there's a 3-dot More button. Here are actions that we can use when you select the 3-dot More buttons. Clear. This option resets the page to its default installed state. All personalization on the current page is cleared. There is no undo action. Therefore, use this option only when we are sure that we want to reset the page. Import. The import is used to load a personalization from a file that we or someone else previously created a page. All our current personalization for the page is replaced with the personalization from the selected file. That's the way we can import somebody's personalization to yourself. Export. Use this option to export your personalization and to get ready for others to import. We can share our personalization with other users, as we mentioned. Those users just import the file that contains our personalization for the page. For some pages that includes list, an additional personalization feature is available. To add workspace button in the personalized group on the option tab of the action pane, let us show the information from the current list in specific workspace. Add a list to a workspace. To add a list to a workspace, first, sort or filter the list on the page so that it shows the information as we want to appear in the workspace. Then select Add to Workspace. Select the workspace and then in the Presentation field, select List. After we select Configure, a dialog box appears where we can select the columns that should appear in the list in the workspace. We can also specify the label to use for this list in the workspace. Other type of adding to workspace is a tile. To add a tile to a workspace, first filter the list on the page as we mentioned earlier so that it shows the data that we want to be summarized or that I want to quick access to. Then select Add to Workspace, then select the workspace we need to add, and select a tile. After we select Configure, a dialog box also appears where we can specify the label to the user for the tile in the workspace. We can also specify whether the tile should show a count or not. After the tile is added to the workspace, we can select it to open the current page from the workspace and view the filtered list data that is associated with this tile. The third type is add a link. Add a link to a workspace is to add first filtered list on the pages so that it shows the data we are interested in. Then select add to workspace, select the workspace we need to add to, and then in the presentation field, select link. After we select configure, a dialog box also appears where we can specify the label to the user for the link. We can also optionally specify a label for the new section that will contain this link. After our list, tile, or link has been added to a workspace, we can open that workspace and reorder the element in it if we need it. Add a summary from a workspace to dashboard. Some workspace contains count tile, that is a tile that have a number on it. And we might want those tiles to appear on our dashboard too. In a workspace, just right-click the count tile and then select Personalize. Then, in the Tile Properties window, select Pin to Dashboard. The next time that we open or refresh the Select Dashboard, the count will appear below the navigation tile for that workspace. We can select that count to go directly to the data that it represents. Personalize a dashboard. The personalized dashboard is often the first page that we see when we open Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. We can personalize the dashboard so that it shows only the workspace tile that we want to see. We can also rearrange the tiles so that they are in the order that we prefer to see them. Rename our workspace navigation tile or add a completely new workspace tile if we want to. To personalize the dashboard, right-click any tile and then select Personalize to open Tiles Property window. If you want to hide or rename the select tile, we can make that change direct in the Property window. To reorder the workspace tile in the Property window, select Personalize this form to open Personalization toolbar. We can then use Move Tool, as we mentioned earlier, to arrange the tiles as we want. To create a new workspace tile in the Property window, just select Add a Workspace. A new workspace tile is created at the bottom of the dashboard. We can then rename it with the name we want to, and then we can also add list, tiles, and links to the workspace as described in the previous. Personalize inventory dimension. This is kind of important when we personalize a setup of inventory dimension on a page. Consider the setting that have been created by using the display dimension option. For example, we use Personalize to hide a column for a batch number inventory dimension, but column appears the next time that the page is open again. This behavior occurs because the dimension display setting controlled inventory dimension column that are shown on the page. The dimension display setting applies across all pages and overrides any personalized setup of inventory dimension fields on the individual pages. As a result, in the preceding example, if we don't want the column for batch number inventory dimension to be appear, for example, we never use the batch number for inventory items, we must clear that dimension as part of a display dimension option for the table. Eventually, this change will apply not only on one specific page, but across all pages in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. After we personalize the page, we can share our personalization with other users by exporting the personalized page. We can then ask other users to open the personalized page and import the personalization file that we created. Alternatively, we can give our personalization to a user who has administrator privilege. That user can then apply our personalization file to many users at the same time. Users who have administrator privilege can also manage personalization for other users on the personalizing page. This page has 4 tabs. First tab is Apply, which we can import or select a personalization for one or more users. To apply a personalization to one or more users, first select a role and the user who have that role. Then either select an existing personalization to apply to the selected users or import a personalization file. The personalization is validated and will be applied to all the selected users the next time that they open or select the page. We can clear all personalization, on the other hand, for the page or workspace for one or more users. First, select a page or workspace to see the list of users who have personalized it. Then, select the user who should have personalization for that page or workspace cleared and select Clear button. All personalizations that select user have applied to the select page or workspace are deleted. It's reset to normal out of box. This action can be undone. However, if a personalization was saved for the page or workspace, that personalization can be re-imported if wanted. Manage per user. Select a user to see the list of pages that he or she has personalized. We can then enable or disable the select user ability to use personalization for specific pages or for the entire system. We can also import, export, or clear a personalization for the select user. Settings. We can temporarily disable all personalization for all users in the system. In this case, the personalization is deleted. All pages are just reset to their default state of all users. If we re-enable personalization later, all personalization will be applied. We can also permanently delete all personalization for all users in the system. There's no way to recover personalization that we have been deleted. Therefore, before we perform this task, be sure to export any personalization we might want later. Okay, now let's demo how to personalize user options. To change the user options, for example, my own account, I'm currently logging in using USMF, and this is my interface when I log into the system. To change that, I click the gear button in the navigation menu bar, go to Setting, User Options. In the Visual tab, I can change my color scheme. For example, I'd like to use orange instead of black. The system immediately changed my interface color scheme to the orange color. And also I can select the size, compressed size. Now you can see my interface is become very compressed. If I click finance operation preview, it's compressed. If I go back with the setup, user options, switch back to the normal size, you can see the difference. Okay, this is how to change the visual by color theme and size. In the preference tab, I can change my default login company from the DAT to USRT, for example. So next time I log in, it will be login directly to USRT instead of DAT. Default dashboard is initial page, home page, going to be used. So instead of a dashboard using default dashboard, I can switch to, for example, employee self-service. And I can also decide default view is use auto or view, means when you open the page, it only is in the view status, and you have to click edit button to make the page as in the editable mode. Or you can direct select if you open any page direct in the editable status. So normally we just using auto, so the system will determine which page should be open in the direct in the edit mode, or which page should be open in the view mode. In the language and control region preference, I can select my language from my own user purpose. For example, the default in English US. I'll be able to change, for example, Chinese if you want. So you have changed your language preference. Refresh your browser to apply the changes. So I leave that as it is, and later I will log in to show the difference. So in the date, time, and the number format, you'll be able to select the format you want. Use English US or English Canada or some another countries. So I choose English US, and then I can select the time zone where my login located. So for example, if I'm choosing the time zone of Pacific time in USA and Canada, I can choose that. Then you also be able to select control region for this user account. Okay, and in the miscellaneous, I can select how to do the document handling. Enable document handling. That means I be able to use the document handling by attach the documents, and also you'll be able to automatically update the query parameters for URL manipulations. So if you want to do that, you'll be able to switch that on. In the accessibility, do you want to enhance the tab sequence? Enhance the tab sequence allow us to ensure all the pages in the tab sequence. The only exception are the elements that have been explicitly marked not being in the tab sequence by personalizations. Okay, so you want to enhance or not? That's you can decide that. So this is a means system will automatically tab all the fields based on the number sequence. In the account tab, This is showing my account ID, and I can give the name, say, for example, admin, or I give my name is Wei Chen. Okay, this is my alias of the login. This is my tenant ID from Azure Active Directory. I can also provide an email provider ID if I know it's a SMTP, and I can give a name, email address as a sender email address. In the electronic signature, do you want to enable this account to able to do the signature, electronic signature or not? Okay, do you want to validate the certificate? And you can designate approver, also get the certificate. In the workflow tab, we can switch on send notification in email if a workflow has requested me as a user as a review task or approve tasks. So the email was sent to me indicate I have task or, for example, expense report to be reviewed and approved. Okay, and also line item workflow notification type is grouped or individual. So grouped means you can group all the line item workflow notification together. Individual is one of each. If I'm planning to go to a vacation in short time, I always can add my workflow and specify any workflow in my system. For example, expense report posting. Okay, and I can delegate to my colleague who is, for example, April, and I can set up the delegate range, for example, November 1st till November 8th. That means I'm going to on vacation for 1 week. All workflow I need to review and approve, I will delegate to my colleague April to review and approve. And you can enable that, kick in these delegations. So in the delegation button, you also could to enable or to disable. So the disable removed my delegations. Now, after I save my user options, then I refresh my browser or logging back. Now you can see my interface totally changed based on my user options. System. Now you can see if I click the home button of finance and operations, all my interface is changed to Chinese fonts. Assume I'm an employee in the organization in China. I can select my own language with Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And you also can see my homepage, instead of showing all the dashboard, my dashboard homepage is a change to employee self-service. Okay, in order to show more detailed language, I will change back my user options from Chinese back to English. Now I save it and refresh my browser again. Now you can see if I click my home page, financial operation button, the home page, instead of a normal default dashboard, it's a change to employee self-service portal workspace. From here, I can easily create my own expense report and view my expense report approval progress, and can submit new timesheets and looking at my next schedule review all related to my employee tasks. And also I can see my team, who is in my team, and what's the position, what's the compensation. So this is the user options from Gear Button Setup button, user options, and you'll be able to select different initial page, which is the home page. Okay, this is user option, how to personalize user options demos. Thank you. Here is another type of personalization. For example, if I go to account receivable, all customers, from the customer list, I'd like to see more detailed information about customers. I can click option, click personalize this form, and the personalized menu is show up to me. I can click add field and move to the grids, and the system will list all available fields to me. Then I can easily choose the information I want to show on this grid. For example, bank account. This is a customer's bank account. I click insert, and you can see a bank account is added to my grid. I also can change my fields sequence from right to left by click move, and I'm able to move my column, for example, bank account, to here. Then click close. This is another kind of a personalization. Now, if I want to see the customer group 30, it will shortlist all the customers to me, which in the customer group 30. If I want to see this shortlist retail customer in my workspace, I can click add to workspace button here and select the workspace I'm going to use. For example, customer invoice. And I can choose either tile, list, or link. For my case, I choose tile. Click configure, and I can name it as a customer retails. And I want to show count number in my tile. Click OK. Now I go to my workspace customer invoice. I immediately see my customer retail tile in the workspace of customer invoice. And you see here's total 25 of retail customer in my USRT company. If user wants to create records more quickly with a common data information, we can use record template. Because all the field values that are used often are saved in it, so we do not have to enter the field value explicitly for each new record. For example, if we want to create one items in the same item family, which has same item model group, product group, item group, dimension group, we can create a record template. So every time we create new product, we will apply this record template to speed up of data entry. For security point of view, we can create record template for some of the record type in Dynamics 365 for financial and operations, and only for the areas that we have to access to. Another example, we need to enter rental information for a car rental business that is in San Francisco, because most of customers are likely to be from the San Francisco area. It would be nice if we could automatically fill in the value of state, country, and city fields on the rental form. All template titles are visible to us when we create new record, and to other users as well, if we are creating a template that will be available for all users. We want to avoid using names that include words such as commission if it's confidential that some employee in the company have a commission-based salaries. When one or more templates that we have access to exist for a specific form, and we attempt to create a new record in the form, the Select a Template For page is displayed. When we select a template from the list, the new record is created and contains default information that is based on the template that we selected. If we do not want to use templates when we create new record, select Do Not Ask Again checkbox in the Select a Template For page. To display the template selection dialog box again, right-click any record, click Record Info, and then click Show Template Selections. Now, let's look at how to create and use a record template. As we mentioned in the presentation, record templates is a very useful and powerful method to speed up, efficiently create new record according to the common data fields. To create a record template, first we need to create a record and make the record as a template. For example, if we go to Fixed Assets module and expand Fixed Assets, let's create a new Fixed Assets. Okay, now I click New. The new Fixed Assets new record forms open. I can select a Fixed Assets group, say computers. In the name, I can put laptop. And this is a tangible, and the property type will be fixed assets. And in the technical information section, I expand that. I can put a model and make, say, Lenovo, and the model may be T400. Model year maybe 2019. And I leave the serial number, and technical information one I can put is, for example, CPU i7, and technical information 2, I would say hard drive 1 TB, and memory 16 gigabyte. Okay, so this is my technical information, and I also can see if I need to put any insurance. So the insurance vendor, I can select ACME office supplies as my insurance of this laptop. And I can put policy number, maybe RN-001. Now, let's say you also be able to load image if you want for Lenovo computers, or you can put any other information related to this fixed assets. Let's assume this laptop, we are going to create 10 of them, because in the organization of our company will be purchase 10, maybe 20 same laptop from Lenovo made and model T400. So instead of I need to create the fixed assets by click new one by one and fill it in all this information repeatedly, I can set up this new record. I save it. I can set up this new record as a record template. So in the future, I can use that to create new model, new laptop without need to type in all the detailed informations. To do that, I click Options, Action Pen, and I click Record Information, Record Info. In the Record Info, I can click User Template. In the user template, I can give the name called Cooperate Laptop. Lenovo laptop. I can give it the descriptions. 400. And I click OK. And I click Close. Now, I successfully create this laptop as my record template. To use this record template, I can go back to my fixed assets and fixed assets. Now, this time, when I create new fixed assets by clicking New, you can see system will smart enough automatically list the record template for fixed assets. You can choose blank. That means everything we have to fit it in again repeatedly. Or I can select this corporate laptop, Lenovo laptop template. And you also be able to switch to not ask again. So for my demo, I will switch no. I want the system to remind me. The reason for that is in the real world, you may have multiple templates for fixed assets. One for corporate Lenovo laptop, maybe another for corporate Dell laptop, or even something else like printers or whatever. So I would like the system remind me what kind of template can be used to create my new records. So now I select corporate laptop, Lenovo laptop. Then I click OK. Now you can see before I put any fixed asset number, my name, search name, and my model information, my technical information, all pre-populated. And as well as insurance vendors, policy number, this all being populated. What I need to do, just continue putting the fixed assets group and the number automatically generated based on number sequence. So you can see I only need to select one, and I create the second, I click Save. My second computer fixed assets being created. If I click Close the page and refresh the page, now you can see in my computer, I have two laptops being created. If you want, we always can modify the templates with additional information. This is a wrap up how to use and how to create a record template and how to use record template. Thank you. Practice questions. Question 1. Which component should you use to implement secure architectures? Secure components include secure roles, duties, permission. The scenario section will be group the security configuration for an employee with the same job function. Assign check deposit task to a group of people as a part of an AR process. Restrict access to specific table or chart. The right answer is restrict access to specific table or chart mapping to permission. And assign check deposit task to a group of people as a part of an AR process will be mapping to duties. Group group security configuration for an employee with a same job function will be mapping to security role. Based on what we learned today about Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, security hierarchy, restrict access is talking about permission for specific table. So that's why we map into permission. Check deposit task is the task for the function a user need to be performance. So this is the duty we need to map to. Now, multiple duties are going to assign a group of employee. This will be functional of security role. So that's why we need a mapping group the security configuration of an employee with the same job function to security roles. Question number 2. Contoso company has noticed recent violation to the corporate security policy in some fields in the Dynamics 365 for sales subscriptions. Choose action you will take to restrict user from reading the phone number field of the contact entity. A. Assign a security role. B. Assign user to a security team. C. Use a business role. D. Assign field security profile. The correct answer is D. Assign a field security profile. As we learn about the permission security, a field security profile is used to give access to a field that have been enabled for the field level security to user other than the default system administrator. Read, update, and create privilege to these fields are given. Since we need to restrict users from reading the field, which is a phone number here, the only way to achieve it is by setup and assign a field security profile. Thank you for attending session of training about MB-300 Dynamics 365 Unified Operation Core Fundamental Exam Preparing 3rd-day session. In next session, we will teach about implement common integration features and data migration. Again, to well prepare this exam, I will strongly encourage you to use Microsoft self-paced learning resources for Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, which you can find at aka.ms/learn. Then search for product of Dynamics 365 finance and operations. Microsoft also offers multiple training and certification resources to us, such as micro-learning, online courses, instructor-led training. We can pick any of these options which is suitable for our learning and exam preparing. Here are additional resources about MB-300 exam details. Thank you.